Hey there, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to today's midweek devotion that we have here today. As last week we wrapped up our first series of devotions from a study Bible I received on a youth mission trip, we are now going to be turning to another one of those, where this one is from the Detroit youth gathering I went to, which was the ELCA National Youth Gathering in 2015, with the theme of Rise Up. So we are going to have 5 devotions that we will be doing from this Bible, and today we are going to be starting with this devotion that is about the story about Jesus healing the paralyzed man. So stay tuned and see what today's story has entailed for you and your faith life. So let's go! As I said, today's story is going to be coming from Mark chapter 2, verses 1 through 12, and it is the story of when Jesus heals the paralytic. So we will begin with this reading. Here we go. When he returned to Capernaum after some days, it was reported that he was at home. So many were gathered around there wasn't enough room for any of them, not even at the foot of the door, and he was speaking the word to them. Then some people came bringing to him a paralyzed man, carried by 4 of them. And when they could not bring him to Jesus because of the crowd, they removed the roof above him, and after having dug through it, they let down the mat on which the paralytic lay. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now some of the scribes were sitting there questioning in their hearts, "Why does this fellow speak in this way? It is blasphemy! Who can forgive sins but God alone?" At once Jesus perceived in his spirit that they were discussing these questions among themselves, and he said to them, "Why do you raise such questions in your hearts? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Stand up and take your mat and walk'? But so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the paralytic, "I say to you, stand up, take your mat, and go to your home." And he stood up and immediately took the mat and went out before all of them. So they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this." So that is our story today of Jesus healing the paralytic. And so now I have some discussion questions that I'm going to leave up for you to interpret, and then I might take a little bit of a stance on where I see these discussion questions in myself. But the discussion questions are, Jesus saw their faith, in verse 5 it says, when they took the man in. So whose faith is he talking about here? Is he talking about just the 4 carriers, or is he talking about all 5 of the men, including the paralytic that has come to be healed by Jesus? The next question is, what is faith? Whenever faith is mentioned in conjunction with miracles in Mark, it seems to imply perseverance and or overcoming obstacles in order to get to Jesus. And then 2 more questions here. Have you ever had an opportunity to share your faith so another could overcome an obstacle and be brought into the presence of Jesus? The final question is, how is bearing another's burdens an act of faith? So now it gives us something to think about with this story and these questions around faith. And the think about it goes like this. We often project our own definition of our burdens onto others. Our first inclination might be to feel sorry for someone who we perceive to be burdened, like the poor or the marginalized. We are quick to offer money to the beggar or volunteer at the soup kitchen, but disciples of Jesus don't stop there. Through our baptism, we are called to strive for justice. Justice means working to undo the systems that keep people caught in poverty and working to undo the prejudices and attitudes that marginalize some people. Changing unjust systems requires acts of faith and perseverance while bearing with those who are held captive to the systems. So I think the way I would kind of have this discussion around faith is that faith is something, like we've said through many of these devotions, that faith is something that can be done through actions. It's not something that you just say, "I have faith." You need to show your faith through actions. And this story talking about justice, again, this theme of justice being brought up, that justice is about breaking down the systems that bring poverty and bring marginalization of people. How can we break those systems down? And I think an important part in this story is to think back to that first discussion question of which faith is being talked about in this story. Because in this story, there's a lot of groups of people. You have the men who are carrying the paralyzed man in. You have the paralyzed man. You have people that are just watching. You have the scribes that are really struggling against what Jesus is saying. And I think it's important for us to think of this story and have the perspective of each person in this story. So I want you to think about whether you view yourself as one of the four men that are helping with the paralytic, whether you view yourselves as the paralytic, whether you view yourselves as a bystander, or whether you view yourself as a scribe, someone who is questioning Jesus and his teachings here, and what happens and how you see it. So think about who you see yourself in the story, but also remember that in your faith journey and in your life, you probably at some point in time are going to pick up and be everyone in this story. That's what we are as humans. We're people who mess up. We're people who try to do good things, and then there's this constant cycle of going back and forth between being someone like a scribe or someone like the one that is helping. And as you think of the different groups in this story, think of how you can put your faith into action and help the people in this story. How can you be a disciple or someone that is willing to rip out a roof to get someone to Jesus? How can you take up the opportunity to share your faith with someone who has an obstacle or is keeping them from a relationship or seeing the presence of Jesus in their lives? How can you explain faith to someone who doesn't really understand what faith could be? How can you help break the systems that are unjust in this world? That is faith in action. And that is what we should take away from today's devotion of the story of Jesus healing the paralytic. And I hope that today's story allows you to think about how you can move forward in your faith journey and how you can help those around you and how you can help create justice for everyone in this world and take it to that next step further. Just the next step further is all we need to do in order to create a world that is more faithful and a world that is more just for everyone. So thank you for tuning into today's devotion. I hope it helps you center yourself for the rest of your week. I hope that you have a great rest of your week. And we will see you with questions on Friday for our Talk About It Friday video. Do not forget that if you have any questions about anything, please send them our way, and we will try our best to work them into our discussion on Fridays, because I want this to be built by you guys. I want this to be something that you can use as a resource to go into your days and into your weeks, have a good laugh, have a good talk, and have a good discussion about something that you might be really interested in. So we'll see you back here on Friday. I hope you have a great day. Have a good one, everybody.